Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman, and today we want to talk with you about this board, the CJ Nelson Outlier 7.0, shaped by Ryan Engel. This board, I can't get around it. This board is a chode. Look at this thing. I mean, it's short, it's wide, it's thick, it's a chode. And you look at it and you're like, it's a fun board. It's a, I don't know, it's like a mini Mal. You kind of look at it, and we had 3 of them in the shop, and they just sort of showed up, and we were like, what are these things? They don't look like any of the other Outliers, because the other Outliers like the 7.6 and the 8.0 and the 9.0 are way proportionally narrower, proportionally more narrow, probably easier to say, than this board. Even like the wind just caught it because it's so wide, just like kind of started blowing it around. But the 7.6 to 9.0 are narrower, more narrow, proportionally more narrow per their size, and they also have a much narrower tail and are set up as a single fin. So this one it's completely different. So the first question is, why does this one even have the Outlier name, would be my first question. Like it could even be like a completely different model name, but and also the performance is completely different as well. So this board maximizes your fun in small. You could go out in waves that you wouldn't even think that you could have a good time on ever, and like have an insane time. I've been surfing a lot, like on a few breaks behind my house, and like breaks that I would never surf, like on a shortboard or anything performance, and I get out of the water with like an absolute giant stoked smile on my face after riding this thing, and then I turn around and I like give it like a look back at the conditions, like, wow, that was super fun, like just hoping to catch like one more set in my peripheral as I leave. And I look at it and I'm like, I had that much fun in that, you know, crumb in that, yeah, that's just like there, cut it. I had that much fun in that, and then I'm sitting there, look at it, and then there are no sets. It's just total junk, and this thing is just a freaking blast. So digging into the design on this thing, the thing you'll notice first is the like the hull entry on it. Like it, rather than being flat or V, it's just got this big bellied entry on it, and it also, you know, has a really wide tail, which gives you a lot of lift and speed. This thing just absolutely flies catching waves. It's like a mega wave catcher, and it also like gets into the wave going ultra fast. So it makes a lot of speed that the small kind of crumbly junk surf doesn't have, whether you're just trimming it or whether you're actively working the wave, like pushing against this tail, which is going to give you a lot of push back just because of the width. This thing catches waves like crazy, like literally like a board like 2 feet longer than it, and then takes off down the line with a lot of speed and builds a lot of speed without a lot of like spastic, awkward pumping. Like you could just do some like smooth pumps, and this thing gets up to speed and just absolutely flies. The other thing that's really unique about this board is the rail shape. You can see it's got like these really soft rails, obviously up front, but like like following the belly into the rail is a really neat contour here up front on the board, you know, like it just literally to like 50-50 here. And then it starts coming more tucked under, but soft and thinner. And then you get to the back and it's full on like sharp rail, a little bit more vertical on the side, and just obviously for speed and release. So you've got like your belly and your glide, and you know, if you're cheater fiving, like nothing's gonna grab, it's gonna be forgiving up forward on the board. And then, you know, more into a softer performance rail, and then just a hard edge out the back and in the tail just for full on speed. So that's a really cool just shaping feature on this board. The other thing to talk about obviously is the construction. It's Thunderbolt red, and red is the all fiberglass construction. And the red and the black, I think, is really confusing for a lot of people, because if they see a red board, even though it's in black construction, they think it's red. Or if you talk about Thunderbolt red, they think it's going to be a red board. Thunderbolt red, which you notice by the red arrow or the red lightning bolt back here, Thunderbolt red is all fiberglass. Thunderbolt black is fiberglass and carbon. And so the Thunderbolt Red is what they chose for this board. It's just a little bit more standard fiberglass cloth layup rather than having the carbon, which is going to make it stiffer and a little bit more responsive. The red's good on a board like this because it gives it a little bit more weight, and it also gives it a little bit livelier flex in softer kind of mushy surf. Like you could bend it and release it with like less speed. So it basically gets the board like into its sweet spot in smaller surf. The black, you want to have a little bit more wave. So black isn't really the best choice for this board, but red for this board is awesome just because you get out there in small waves and you can actually like load the board up and have it load and unload and spring back and create speed. So that's why they chose the red. It also, the red gives the board a nice little weight to it, which with this hull entry and just the whole performance of this board, having a little bit of weight is going to allow the board to carry momentum and build momentum, which is something that this type of design really likes, is like kind of momentum-based surfing. The other nice thing about Thunderbolt, it is definitely a little bit more durable than like a standard PU poly. This board has already probably like 6 or 7 surfs on it. It's got like one dent in the deck where I came down hard on my elbow, but not a ding. Like it's not sucking water, it's just like a dent. But I mean, anything, you know, if it was a poly board, my elbow like would have went through the board with how hard I came down on it. But yeah, so the Thunderbolt's nice just because it gives you that lively flex. It gives you a good weight. This is a little bit lighter than a poly, but not so light that it's like ridiculously light. And then it gives you that durability. And then that flex and the spring and just the performance is unique to Thunderbolt. And the red in this board, Thunderbolt Red, again, the all fiberglass construction is a really good choice. And the other thing it does really well when you step back onto the tail is it could do like kind of any radius turn, just depending on where you are standing on the tail. Like you can get pretty far back on it just because of the width. And the 2+1 fin setup is really cool to support the width of the tail, because this would be a pretty wide tail unless you put a gigantic fin in it as a single fin, which you can do. But I have FCS2 fiberglass Carver side bites, and then a FCS Christensen 7.5 center fin. CJ Nelson himself, he is an absolute beast on his turns, and he rides like super big fins. And when Mike Milliken sent me this board, he's like, hey, don't overfin it, like ride some smaller fins. So that was his own personal choice. So I rode the 7.5, really liked it. And the one thing I did a lot with this fin is just adjust the forward and back kind of positioning of it. And this was kind of the all around, and you can kind of see the cluster is pretty tight. I had it a little bit further back and it felt a little bit dead and definitely a little bit stiff. And so I moved it in, and then the board just went absolutely magic. And it was only like, it was literally, you know, in the water above, like you couldn't even stand. And all you got to do is just hit the back of the fin, move it back, move it forward to where you want it, and then put it back in. And then you're good to go. And I say that, and I kind of bring a highlight to it because a lot of times if you have to, you don't want to leave the water to go to the beach or go to your car to get a screwdriver that you might have to adjust the fin, and then all of a sudden the stoke is gone, or you get a phone call and you got to leave. So having something that's adjustable like that is nice, especially on a 2+1, where in the little tiny stuff you can run the cluster really tight. But what I found is like when the waves started getting chest high with some shape to it, you wanted to move it a little bit further back just to give a little bit more confident hold. So that's good on the fins. Again, 7.5 Christensen in the center, Carver side bites, and definitely play around with the fin placement, and definitely try the cluster tighter than you would think. As far as the wave range, the other Outliers are do everything boards. Like you can ride them small, although this thing is going to have way more juice and way more speed in small surf, but that 7.6 and bigger, you can ride them small, medium, and bigger surf. This board like is a full-on small wave, like small to maybe softer medium wave specialist, and it just absolutely just crushes that kind of surf. And the what I found, like a really favorite board of mine in small surf is a Werner Mini Simmons, and those boards feel really good, like appropriately sized, maybe a little bit big, and then it just keeps feeling better the smaller you go. Like where you would kind of never ride like a 7-foot Mini Simmons because it would just be too powerful. This board works really well. You know, it's only available in a 7.0, but it actually really works well in a 7.0. Like where something like the Mini Simmons would be too powerful and kind of not work as well in a 7.0 size, although it absolutely crushes like in the appropriate sizes. Like if you want to ride a 7.0, like this thing has a lot of that same feel, but it works incredibly well in a 7.0. Again, like you basically just fall in love not with the look of the board, but the performance of the board, and like just the wave catching and the turns and the speed and the section making. I have no idea what type of traction this is. The board showed up with this traction. This board was Mark Price's personal board, and Mike borrowed it from him. I think it might be a permanent borrow though, because I'm not giving it back. It's working really well with wetsuits on. I'm not really too excited about getting naked on top of this stuff, like with like knees and chest, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe I might have to take a hairdryer and get it off. And then I just got wax up front because you could definitely get forward on this board for the Cheater 5s and stuff like that. I actually had a few really fun like Cheater 5 little head dips on it that were cool. And man, I've been having a good time in this thing. But I would definitely say like chest high and hollow is the top of this board's range, or you know, again, maybe just a little bit bigger if it's just ultra soft. But play with those fins, spread them out, and just remember that this Outlier is different than all of the other Outliers. It's just like that one random that they threw in the Outlier range, but just absolutely ultra fun. I'm really psyched about summer coming up in our never-ending kind of 1 to 3 trade wind swell that we get here in Cape Hatteras. Dimensions on this board: 7.0, 23, 3 1/8. So we're talking like IPA thicknesses on this one. 23 inches wide is wide. Like I've got long arms and this thing takes up like my whole arm, but man, this thing just absolutely flies in small surf. I'm super psyched on it. And if you ever get a chance to try one of these or buy one, you're gonna be stoked. And actually, I just found out the name of these pads. Little bonus section here, RS Pro. Is there not even the pads, it's just like kind of glue, like peel and stick traction, RS Pro. But it works. I just don't know how well it's gonna work like with bare skin. That's the review. I'm psyching on this thing. I'm not giving it back. I'm gonna surf it all summer. If you can find one, definitely get it. If you'd like to place an order for one, or if you have any more questions about the CJ Nelson Ryan Engel Outlier 7.0, you can always give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. And the next time that you go to the beach and the waves look like junk, you'll look out there and you'll say, hey, that's fully choatable, I'm out there.